What's going on YouTube? I'm back with another video, and this video is a little bit different from a vlog because this video I'm talking about how to get the perfect B-roll footage, because I get a lot of questions, I get a lot of comments. How do you get that B-roll footage? How do you get the colors? How do you get it that smooth? So this video is pretty much all of that put into 5 things, how to start crushing your B-roll game. First thing, FPS. Okay, so the first thing is FPS. Now FPS is really important in any type of video making in general. In a vlog or movie, 24 FPS is typically the standard, but when you're shooting B-roll, you typically want to do slow-mo more often than not. And so slow-mo requires more FPS than your typical 24. Slow-mo usually requires 60, or if you have it, 120 FPS. This is 24 FPS. What you're looking at now is the typical cinematic standard, your typical vlog standard. This is pretty much all there is to 24 FPS. It's just a typical in-camera setting. And this is what 60 FPS looks like.
This is what 60 frames looks like. As you can see, it's much more smoother. You can see all the motion, and it looks very pleasing. It is mostly done for slow motion captures at 60 frames per second.
Okay, the next thing is picture profiles. Now, picture profiles are pretty flexible on how you want to make them. I usually shoot in a neutral picture profile. That way everything looks a little less sharp. It's not as colorful, and it has more dynamic range. They're just settings you can add in your camera. I usually shoot with the neutral, and you can change these settings yourself in camera. When you're shooting on this picture profile, it makes it a lot easier post-process afterwards. It makes it a lot easier to bring out colors, makes them a lot more vibrant, and just get more light in general. I shoot all of my vlogs in a flat profile, that way I can color correct everything afterwards. And B-roll is one of the most important things to shoot in a neutral profile. Now, in a professional camera, a flat profile or a neutral profile is typically called log. If you have a professional camera, I would highly recommend using a log picture profile. And this is how it looks like in a standard picture profile. You'll notice the colors are a little more vibrant, they're a little more saturated, everything looks a little bit brighter. There is a little less dynamic range because with this setting, the camera is in a sense color correcting your footage or your pictures for you. That is why I prefer to shoot in a neutral picture profile, so that way I can color grade things the way I want them to look afterwards without having the camera make any decisions for me. I'm going to show you guys some more B-roll footage right now, and I'll show you what B-roll footage looks like that is shot in the neutral profile and what B-roll footage looks like that isn't shot in the neutral profile picture, or picture profile. Shut up.
Suavecito amor mío, acércate a gozar, estás en camino, ando en la oscuridad, quitándome la ropa, con los labios cómeme, con la boca. Hey.
Okay, quick intermission. When we were shooting that short film called 15 Minutes on my channel, we were at the same place and there were a bunch of geese, right? And so we were kind of wondering the entire time what would happen or what the geese would do if we just ran up to them and like approached them really quickly with hostility. So that's what I'm gonna do. Hey, go! Oh, he's not afraid. He's not afraid at all. He's like, he came to the wrong pond. Oh, yeah, there he goes. Big water chickens. What about you? Oh yeah, I think I know the Canadian geese are like really mean, but I think these ones have just been like around people so often that. Watch out, you step on me. Oh, get your bird crap over here.
I don't know what it is, but
Number 3, what we're talking about for good B-roll is your shutter speed. Now, shutter speed is like a staple of photography, but it's also really important in video because it makes for motion blur. Now, a good rule of thumb is typically you want to set your shutter speed to 2 times whatever your FPS is. Now, I'm shooting right now at 60 shutter speed because my camera won't go down to 50 on these settings, but that is the closest I'm going to get to 24 times 2 because 24 times 2 is 48, it's 50, but I can't get 50, so I'm going 60. So I'm going to show you right now what the motion blur looks like. Throwing this pen against the statue there, I don't really have anything else to throw, and this is the only place we have to throw anything. So yeah, I'm just gonna do that. Okay, now we're shooting at, what does it say, 225? Okay, now we're shooting at 225 shutter speed, and you'll notice it looks a little bit darker because that's just natural with the exposure, with the shutter speed. It's the same principle as in photography, but I mean, it's just kind of a balance. You have to find a balance in whatever you're shooting, with the exposure, with the aperture, blah, blah, blah. So now I'm gonna show you what the motion blur looks like when I throw this pen against the statue at 100, 1 of 2, whatever. Okay, so the next thing that makes B-roll really good is just smooth movement, and this doesn't really need any explanation because nobody wants to watch shaky footage.
Suavecito amor mío, acércate a gozar, estás en camino, ando en la oscuridad, quitándome la ropa, con los labios cómeme, con la boca. Hey babe, ¿a qué estás jugando? A ver si te atreves a venir, a ver si te atreves a venir.
Alright, the last thing to really talk about in that good B-roll footage is just relativity. Just make sure whatever you're shooting B-roll of relates to whatever you're talking about or whatever you're making a video about, because I mean, if you're making a video about the greatest basketball player, we're not going to want to see Vietnam War footage, if that makes sense. It's B-roll, you know? So, I mean, just make sure it relates to the video, and that's pretty much it. It's just those 5 things to make good B-roll in your videos, just make it that much better. I mean, you follow the settings, you just follow the general concept, it makes your footage just like, mwah!
Hey babe, ¿a qué estás jugando? A ver si te atreves a venir, a ver si te atreves a venir aquí.